Hello, Miami. This is 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will, and I'm here to bring you pretty much the analysis of the Georgia Tech versus Miami Hurricanes football game. And I must say, Canes came out with a 35-14 victory against the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech, and it was the most complete game, right? The most complete game the Miami Hurricanes have played all year, in which both the offense and defense were pretty much in sync. It was a interesting aspect for the Miami Hurricanes offense as Ja'Cory Brown, the true freshman, takes his first start and has a pretty solid performance. In general, the playbook was very simplified. I will say the play calling was very simplified. A lot of wide receiver screens, a lot of quarterback draw plays in general, or quarterback led runs, a lot, and so on. The running game was a much bigger factor in today's offense. In particular, we saw a lot of Rooster, Jalen Knighton, as Henry Parrish did not play. For the Canes, saw a little bit of a Thad Franklin, right? Lucius Stanley got a little bit of run as well. So it was a pretty good balanced attack for the Miami Hurricanes on offense. Ja'Cory only threw 19 passes, went 14 of 19, only 136 yards passing, but the magic number was 3 touchdowns. Miami Hurricanes get, into the end zone in the first quarter, in which Brown hooks up with Will Mallory, the All-American tight end, and that sealed the deal, and it's pretty much breaks that 9-quarter drought the Miami Hurricanes were facing as far as touchdowns go. All right, the Miami Hurricanes ran the ball very well. All right, with 217 yards rushing. Rooster led the way with 16 carries, 118 yards rushing, and 1 touchdown. Again, like I said, Jalen Knighton threw 136 yards in terms of passing. So again, a very balanced approach, kind of like the approach that Mario Cristobal wants to take with this offense. Some positives about Ja'Cory: we did see that arm strength in display. Some negatives: it's not very accurate. All right, his deep ball was a bit yet to be desired, as he missed Xavier Restrepo, who was wide open. I believe it was in the first quarter. He was wide open. And I believe in the third or fourth quarter, I can't recall, Ja'Cory also missed, I believe it was a wide open Frank Ladson or Kobe Young. I really don't remember, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, he missed Xavier Restrepo, threw it over his head by about maybe 5 yards, and he missed the other receiver who was wide open and step on his man for about 15 yards, between 10 and 15 yards. So that's still, he's a work in progress, in general, but the talent is there. He is absolutely electric. He's very quick with his legs. He's powerful. He could take a hit. So I can't imagine what he's going to be like when he's, a sophomore, a junior, and possibly a senior. There is a lot of positives, all right? Although the Miami Hurricanes did lose Jaden Rashada as he flipped to go to the Florida Gators in particular, if the quarterback room stays intact, Miami does have a surplus of quarterbacks, all right? As Tyler Van Dyke could come back next year, right? He will be eligible. We don't know the future of Jake Garcia, but I don't buy, what I've seen online. I think Jake Garcia is a lot better than what he's proven this year. I think Jake has been put in situations that have been very difficult for him. Like, for example, in the Florida State game, in your own territory, you run Ja'Cory twice, and then you expect, Jake to come in on a 3rd and 5. I thought that was not good coaching, as far as, in terms of putting your players in the best position to succeed. It seems to me that the offense has lost a little bit of faith in Jake. All right. And that's why they went with Ja'Cory. But I do believe Jake Garcia is a good quarterback, and in the right system, he could light it up. He lit it up in Georgia. He looked pretty good in that game, even though it was a very weak football team. But that one game he played last year under the leadership of Rhett Lashey's offense, where I think he threw a couple touchdowns. He looked like his ceiling was yet to be touched. This year has not been the case, right? He's shown flashes, all right, like that nice touchdown pass to Kobe Young against Duke. He also, against Middle Tennessee, led a touchdown drive, right, as far as Jake Garcia goes. But against Florida State, and against Virginia as well, it didn't go very well for Jake. Although Jake did win that football game against Virginia, never got in the end zone, and we saw what happened against Florida State, in which led to Ja'Cory getting the starting spot, I think, today. But nonetheless, I do want to see, I do like the balanced approach. I think, like I said, it's the first time Miami's played a complete game this year. I'll go into the defense in a minute. But as far as like the running game and the passing game, they both did very well for each other. The Miami Hurricanes moving forward are going to have to run the football effectively to get, to a bowl game, right? That's going to have to be their number one tool. The offensive line did block well today, specifically, especially in the first half. I thought in the second half, there could have been some adjustments made to maybe some more creative runs, I would say, but nonetheless, they ran away with it, especially in the fourth quarter. But as far as like the first half goes, Miami's offensive line was manhandling Georgia Tech's defensive line, and they were opening holes for Knight, and they were opening holes as well for Jakuri and throughout. And then later on, as time progressed in the third and late in the third and early in the fourth, the running game continued to do what it was doing. And I think if you're going to beat Clemson and you're going to go on to beat Pittsburgh as well as the final game of the season, the Miami Hurricanes are going to have to run the ball effectively. All right. So that's just a little bit about that. Again, Jakuri, show some flashes. All right. The offense is bought in on him. Right. It seems like, he has the respect of his players as he was, setting guys up in motion, telling guys to move, and they were, and good communication in that regard. The slant passes were very nice. We saw some more Frank Ladson, which we wanted to see this year. Frank Ladson made an appearance, had a couple good catches as well. Restrepo as well. Not only did Restrepo catch well when he had the opportunity in terms of receiving, he also blocked very well, right? Which is very important in this Miami Hurricane offense. If you're going to throw a lot of wide receiver screens in particular, and also, some swing passes to the tailback, if you also want to do that, the wide receivers have got to block. It's very funny. I've been a little nostalgic lately. I've been watching old games or condensed games actually of the first couple of years of Mark Richt, all right, on I forgot, I think it's Kane's tapes, on YouTube. If you want to give them a look, they did a great job of editing some of these older games. And the one thing I will say that I think made Mark Richt's offense, although boring, I'm not gonna lie, a little boring, but successful to some extent, was the fact that he had wide receivers that could block, like Amon Richards, Stacy Coley, and Braxton Berrios. All right. The knock on the wide receivers this year is that they can't block. All right. It's one of the things that has plagued, the Miami Hurricanes. And I think it's also one of the main reasons why Romello Brinson hasn't seen much of the field. It's like when he's lined up, he doesn't block. All right. That he's not very good at blocking, for his teammates. So that's something that is a necessity in this offense. And we saw that today with Restrepo being in the game and being able to block. Okay. Colby Young's another good one too that could block as well. So I think that's the reason why, again, these guys are also seeing the field. So it's very important in this offense, especially moving forward with Jakuri. If you're going to throw those types of throws, those wide receiver screen types, your receivers have to block. All right. It's non-negotiable. Okay. And your line, especially at the left tackle position, has got to keep those linemen at bay, or the incoming rushing linebacker, because those balls can be batted up and be intercepted or batted down. All right. So those are things that we're going to do, because that's what I think we're going to see next week against Clemson. They're going to play it safe with Clemson on offense, because Clemson, is still Clemson, and we're playing over there, and defense is still pretty solid over there with Clemson. But Miami, again, blocking, which is always the case, is going to have to be key. So at the tackle positions and also the wide receiver position, the way this offense looks like it's going to move forward, we're going to see a lot more of these swing passes and wide receiver screens. So blocking is going to be very key. All right. And I don't think we should be afraid to let it cut loose either. I think Jakuri does have a strong arm. Something you work on in practice is timing. All right. The deep ball could be your best ally. If you're going to have an effective running game, you have to have defenses respect, the deep ball. And although Jakuri isn't accurate with that deep ball, with practice, he can be. All right. So what I'm trying to say is, timing is going to be very key. And I think that's something they should work on practice this week when they go up to South Carolina and play Clemson, because Clemson, has obviously is much more talented than Georgia Tech, but you're going to have to stretch that field a bit, and you're going to have those safeties respect the fact that on occasion, if you allow one-on-one coverage with a guy like Colby Young, Restrepo, or Keyshawn Smith, or Frank Ladson, you will get burned if you don't have the right coverage there, or if you don't have a safety playing over the top. All right. So it's going to be something that I think that the Canes need to look at as far as the offense goes. So working on Jakuri's deep ball is going to be very huge. Wide receiver blocking, and also making sure that the tackles can hold their guys off, allowing for these screens to develop, because Clemson knows, with Jakuri being a true freshman, they're simplifying the playbook for him in particular, so he can get, into rhythm. They're gonna try to cause havoc at the line of scrimmage to disrupt those types of opportunities. Okay. On another side, the defense was flat out, balling today, especially, believe it or not, at the defensive back position. Those defensive backs today were absolutely astonishing for the Miami Hurricanes. All right, the front seven only got 2 sacks. They did get a lot of quarterback hurries. All right, but they did beat up Georgia Tech's offensive line. They did beat up, Georgia Tech's quarterbacks. Georgia Tech used 2 quarterbacks today. All right, because the fact that the fact is that they were able to manhandle them all together. Basically, it was Zach Gibson and Zach Peary just got totally mashed up, averaging only 5 yards per throw. The Canes recorded, 4 turnovers in the game, 3 interceptions by Cam Kitchens, 1 pick by Tyreek Stevenson, all right, as well, 9 tackles for loss, and as I mentioned, 2 sacks, a bunch of pass breakups as well. The one thing I did notice that they did change and finally did change is that they played Cam Kitchens a lot deeper than they've been playing him in the regular season. They've used Al Blades, to pretty much cover, deep, on several occasions. In some aspects, I think there's miscommunication. Although I think Cam Kitchens on many occasions was supposed to be the deeper guy, in particular, he has lost his man on a few occasions, i.e., the Middle Tennessee State game where they got burned by DJ English. Okay, I think Cam was supposed to play a little bit more over the top, and Tyreek Stevenson got a lot of the blame for that one. But the bottom line is that, they played Cam deep and it worked. All right. Cam was able to get 3 interceptions. He was an absolute ball hawk in the game. All right. They played, James Williams a bit closer, stopping the run in general and assisting and stopping the run as well. And also some of these short passes. All right. So the safety position, which has been the most consistent position this season, has been, played very, very, and I mean very well today for the Canes. And I will give credit to the cornerbacks as well. They did play very well today. Tyreek did give up a touchdown, but Pyrie had to have the most perfect throw, to make sure his receiver could only get that ball. You could not have any better coverage than what Stevenson did. So the Miami Hurricanes defense, flat out, ball today. All right. Not as much pressure as I would have liked in the quarterbacks, but 9 tackles for loss is a good thing. 2 sacks is a good thing. And also, the defensive backs helping out the front seven for a change was also a very good thing as well. Hakeem Mesidor played very well in the game as well. Corey Flagg, was involved in a lot of the tackles, as well. So that's something that we like to see. Corey Flagg is only a sophomore, all right? He's only going to get better. Wesley Basaint as well was all over the field. Wesley Basaint is a guy that next year you need to watch out for, because I do believe that Raul Aguirre, when he comes in, and also Malik Bryant, who, by the way, are 100% committed, no matter what happened with Jaden Rashada, they are committed. They've said they're committed. And Aguirre is so committed. His father has been very vocal on social media. And he said, I believe it was on Twitter, and it got advertised on Facebook, that basically he's coming to challenge the veterans at the linebacker position. So those are the kind of guys you do want on your team in particular. But the front seven for the Canes is still awfully young. Leonard Taylor is a true sophomore. I think Hakeem Mesidor might be a sophomore or a junior, right? I'm not 100% sure, but I know he's still a young guy. You have Jaden Wayne coming in. You have Cyrus Moss, Nigel Lee Kelly. This front seven for the Canes is still awfully young, and if they developed correctly, they will wreak havoc, to opposing quarterbacks for years to come. I think the Canes are in very good position, at least at the front seven. Defensive backfield, Cormani McLean is going to get a good opportunity to get reps this year. Possibly as a starter, because he comes in with such a reputation, and we'll see what happens with Damari Brown as well. All right, because I think Damari Brown is still on the fence. My opinion, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, it is between Miami and Florida State. I don't think Alabama's in the picture. I'll be very frank with you. If Damari Brown wants to play, Florida State and Miami are the 2 best schools for him. Right now, Alabama has a 5-star corner committed, and it's basically a factory over there. So let's be honest, okay? I don't care if Alabama has 2 losses this year. Nick Saban still recruits top 5 classes every year, and including in defensive backfield. So I do think it's a 2-way race between Miami and Florida State. So that's pretty much what I think of that in terms of Damari Brown's services. Okay, so I do believe the Canes next year, or this upcoming year, once the season's over, we'll be looking at the transfer portal for possibly at the cornerback position. But whatever the case may be, I do think, that defensively speaking, the Miami Hurricanes at the front seven will be in good shape. And I do eventually believe that the cornerbacks, position will be solved. I am a fan of James Williams. I hope he does stay. I hope he does stay. I do think if he does not hit the transfer portal, rumor has it a lot of guys are probably going to test that because they're not in favor of Mario Cristobal's tough discipline style as comparison to Manny Diaz was much more of a player's joke. Whatever the case may be, I do think that James Williams' best position will be the striker position, which is right now. Um, um, it's kind of mixed because Keontre Smith will play it. We've seen Gilbert Frierson play it quite a bit this year. I do believe that James Williams will be best suited for that position, being a hybrid linebacker slash hybrid safety. Okay, I think he'll be really good at that. Especially as a true junior next year, which he has a little bit more of experience in Kevin Steele's defense. And I think I would love to see a no-fly zone between Avante Williams and Cam Kitchens. I think that'll be absolutely sick. Although Avante, has gotten, all the playing time this year. He's been out in the field more often. And I think the kid's a flat out baller if given the opportunity. All right. Although the offense did very well today, in comparison to other games in particular. And I did say it was the most complete game the team in general has played all year. I still do believe the Miami Hurricanes need to make a change at the OC position. I'm standing by that position. I do think that Miami needs to make a significant change because I don't think that Josh Gaddis' system, fits the type of players that we have in Florida. All right. At least, especially at the skill position. So if there's one position that Mario needs to really look at, I don't think it's so much the position coaches. I think it's just the coordinatorship. And I think the coordinatorship, as far as offense goes, needs to change. So either promote Frank Ponce, your old friend, to OC, let him have a little bit more of the reins like he did at App State, for that 1 year, or look outward. Okay, look outward and maybe, look at other coordinators. Okay. Last year, one of the guys that was mentioned before Mario Cristobal took over the Canes when they were still kind of flirting with firing with Manny Diaz and Rhett Lashley took the job at SMU was Tom Herman. I think Tom Herman, if available, would be a pretty good OC for this football team. A guy that's known for scoring a ton of points. All right. When he was coaching out at Houston, and he called his own plays. All right. So if anybody says, yo, this guy never called his own plays, he used to call his own plays. So that's some guy that we could look at. We could look at the OC as well at TCU. I just can't remember his name. The OC right now, TCU's having a great year and just scoring a lot of points. I think the offensive coordinator over there at TCU, another guy we could look at, which would help out, our skill position players and put a lot of points on the board. Just a couple suggestions. If you hate my idea of Tom Herman, feel free to comment. That's fine. I don't mind going back and forth. You guys know I do answer as many comments as I can, as long as they're not stupid. Like some I've gotten, recently, and I'm not from you Canes fans. I'll tell you that much. It's from others. All right. In particular. All right. For those of you who saw the opening, you're like, why is Will talking about Kevin Conroy, the former voice of Batman, who recently passed away just a couple days ago? And let me explain to you why. All right. For those of you who know me personally, I am a huge fan of Batman, and one of the main reasons why is because growing up, he was the lead superhero. Although Superman has always been the guy, but I was 9 years old when Michael Keaton, released, the movie with Jack Nicholson as Joker. Then Batman Returns came out, and I flocked to the theaters. And that same year, 1992, Batman the Animated Series came out, and I just like the way that Kevin Conroy sounded, and I think a lot of people out there can really identify with the fact that he's their Batman growing up and he's part of their childhood. Kevin Conroy voiced Batman for almost 30 years. He started in 1992, and the last time he ever recorded his voice as the Cape Crusader was in 2019 for one of the last DC animated films. And it, as much as you could argue who's the best Batman as far as Michael Keaton versus Christian Bale versus Ben Affleck versus Robert Pattinson, I think, it's almost unanimous that you could say that the greatest voice of all time in terms of the best representation of the voice of all time is Kevin Conroy. All right. Bruce Greenwood has done a good job in Justice League. I'm sorry, in Teen Titans or Young Justice. And Under the Red Hood was a phenomenal film, animated film, adaptation of the Death in the Family series. But Kevin Conroy, in the animated series, then when they redid the animated series, and then when he played Batman in the Superman series, Batman Beyond as an older, raspier Batman. I mean, also let's look at the other animated films like Gotham Knights and Flashpoint Paradox and the video games, from Injustice, to the Arkham series in general. There is nobody that will ever be able to replace the voice of Batman and be identified as Batman, such as Kevin Conroy. They took a chance on him. He was a pretty much a no-name actor, done a couple things here and there. I think he did one appearance on an old TV show, Murphy Brown. I know I'm dating myself with that show with Candice Bergeron in particular. He did one appearance, and then they took a chance on him. They brought in Mark Hamill to play the Joker. Almost had Tim Curry play the Joker. A lot of people don't know that, but Kevin Conroy was a relative unknown. As far as like actors go in Hollywood. Mark Hamill had become the staple of the Star Wars franchise as Luke Skywalker. But they gave a chance with Kevin Conroy, and years later, he's still the iconic voice and the voice that everybody, whenever there's an animated movie coming out, hopes he plays that role. Right? Even today, when these films come out on HBO Max, in particular, I'm like, oh my God, I hope it's Kevin Conroy. I hope it's Kevin Conroy. Video game, Kevin Conroy. No disrespect to Jason O'Mara, but Kevin Conroy. So that's a little bit about Kevin. He was unknowing for a lot of people. He was struggling with cancer, and I think that's what finally did him in particular. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family, as well. And as a Batman fan, as a DC fan, also a Marvel fan, but as a DC fan in particular, the world's lost a great talent. As Stanley was to Marvel, as far as creativity goes, I think Kevin Conroy, as far as bringing the character of Batman to life, there will never be another Kevin Conroy ever again. All right. So that's it for me. If you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. For 305 Sports Now, I am Will. Stay safe. God bless. See you soon. And I will be bringing you some coverage of the Dolphins tomorrow. Have a good night.